Good evening. President Donald Trump outlining his administration's strategy in Afghanistan. The president addressed the nation about an hour ago. He says the strategy will be based on conditions on the ground, not timing. According to the president, though, he will not talk about numbers of troops or even plans for further military activities. In fact, he says we don't have a blank check, but he's going to let the generals in the area start leading. Emily Schmidt is live in D.C. with the latest.
Good evening. President Trump had harsh words for terrorists in Afghanistan in his primetime speech that ended just about a few minutes ago. He called those terrorists thugs, criminals, predators, and losers. And he promised that the U.S. would beat them handily by staying in the country that candidate Trump had once used to call on the U.S. to leave. President Trump saying, "We're not nation building, we are killing terrorists." Trump sought to define how that different involvement had evolved, and he said, look, my original instinct was to pull out of Afghanistan. Historically said he liked following his instincts, but all his life he had heard that decisions are much different when you are actually sitting in the Oval Office. So after consulting with a number of top military advisors, after nearly 16 years of the U.S. fighting in Afghanistan, President Trump said there cannot be a hasty withdrawal. That would simply create a vacuum for terrorists to fill. Instead, he proposes some significant change, but was very short on detail, and that, he said, is by design.
We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities. Conditions on the ground, not arbitrary timetables, will guide our strategy from now on. America's enemies must never know our plans or believe they can wait us out. I will not say when we are going to attack, but attack we will.
The president spoke not far from Washington in Arlington, Virginia, the same state where, of course, those attacks in Charlottesville, Virginia happened just a little more than a week ago. The president did not talk directly about them, but also called for national unity and healing, in part in the name of all the troops who serve the U.S. He said, we cannot be a force for peace in the world if we are not at peace with each other. Reporting live in Washington, I'm Emily Schmidt. Now back to you.
Emily Schmidt, thank you. We want to give you some perspective now as we go back to the beginning of the United States presence in Afghanistan. U.S. troops have actually been there since 2001, making it the longest war in U.S. history. Troops were deployed to stop the Taliban from protecting al-Qaeda after the September 11th terror attacks. 2 months after those attacks, there were 1,300 troops in Afghanistan. By 2010, that number was 100,000. In May 2011, a raid in Pakistan killed Osama bin Laden, former leader of al-Qaeda, and the person who orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. That June, President Obama said the U.S. combat role in Afghanistan would end by 2014, though troops would remain in training and support roles for Afghan security and counterinsurgent operations. As of 2017, more than 8,000 U.S. troops and 6,000 NATO troops are in Afghanistan for other counter-terrorist operations. More than 3,000 U.S. coalition troops have been killed since the start of that war.